An art advocacy project by Mary Lou Dergali in the Path of Innovation for the Millennials. Albert Einstein, one of our most revered scientists, says, "It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge." I do that through being an artist myself and the passion I have for art, along with being an educator and seeing the importance on students' growth in creative thinking. My advocacy project focuses on how the art classroom helps develop creative thinking skills by allowing students to learn without the fear of failing and encouraging them to think out of the box. Based off a survey conducted by Adobe amongst American college-educated and full-time employees ages 25 and up, 82% of college-educated professionals wish they had more exposure to creative thinking as students. An art classroom is seen as a space provided for students to create new things and think of new ideas, which nurtures their creativity and produces beautiful work. However, what is often forgotten is that creativity is the product of creative thinking. Creative thinking is the cognitive process used to come up with the ideas and how to make these ideas become real. And that is the key to innovation. Based off the same survey by Adobe, art was number 1 on the list of subjects regarded as making important contributions to creative thinking. And most educated professionals associate creative thinking with thinking out of the box or the ability to come up with innovative ideas. So what are the contemporary problems that block creative thinking? Well, for one, students of this generation are handed tools that solve problems that previous generations had to do for themselves. These problem-solving devices, such as smartphones, are now both a necessity and a crutch. They prevent students from using their imagination, from generating ideas and questions, and from going through trial and error methods. All of these are components which make up the concept of creative thinking that are fostered by the strategies and the practices in an art classroom. Here's a scenario where creative thinking was extremely important. Imagine you're in space and an oxygen tank explodes. It causes limitation on power, which results in loss of cabin heat, shortage of potable water, and the critical need to fix the carbon dioxide removal system. This is a clip from the movie Apollo 13, based off real-life events.
Gene, we have a situation brewing with the carbon dioxide.
We had a CO2 filter problem on the lunar module.
5 filters on the limb.
Which were meant for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told the doc,
You're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15 and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
What about the scrubbers on the command module?
They take square cartridges.
The ones on the limb are round.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
It just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Creative thinking is exactly how NASA helped 3 astronauts survive a mission that was 200,000 miles away from the planet Earth, without the normal supply of electricity and water needed to survive in space. The ancient Indo-European root art means to fit together. Art forces students to actively work towards finding a solution instead of being passively dependent on search engines. It creates an environment in which they can come up with multiple ideas that may or may not work. Students develop creative thinking skills in an art classroom whereas in other classrooms, problems they face might have one solution, and they may have only one chance to get that right, sometimes causing students to give up. The art classroom allows them to face difficulties, make mistakes, and keep going until they find a solution for the problem. An educationalist named Graham Wallace created a 4-stage creative thinking process in 1926 that is still used as a model today. His stages are prepare, incubate, illuminate, and verify. I used NASA as inspiration and his model to help me organize a skill-building lesson in a curriculum unit. The unit I'm addressing is character design. I want my students to create unique and original characters. In previous classes where I taught character design, students tend to create characters very similar from what they see in games and on TV, and would get stuck when we got into creating an environment for their character. The skill-building lesson encourages my students to be more innovative with their character designs. I told my students to imagine we teleported to an island and we don't have any way out. We need to build a few things so we can survive. Then, together, we investigated the random material they will work with and defined what the materials are and how they can use them. We were to pretend each item was something you find in nature. The rules were that they had to give me the materials back as they were when they received them. The next step was to ideate and brainstorm. I put the students in groups. Each group received a bag with the materials in it, along with a piece of paper that states what they will be building. They also had to sketch out and brainstorm ideas of what they were building, how they were going to build it, and how it's going to work. John Dewey, an educational reformer, says, "Give the pupils something to do, not something to learn. And the doing is of such a nature as to demand thinking. Learning naturally results." So I gave them a chance to create. They were so into it and trying to survive on this island that they weren't asking me questions like, "Can we use our cell phones to look up photos?" anymore. In a survey I conducted, I asked my students what they can do next time they are confronted with a challenge. Some of the answers were, we can use our imagination, we can think creatively, and we could learn to solve problems on our own. Others answered, don't give up, keep trying. The next part of the lesson was similar, but this time I told them, imagine we came across a creature on this island that we have never seen before. They were to use the same material to create an original character, except this time they can manipulate the material. They were so excited to share their characters that some groups decided on their own to come up with an original name for the creature or even weaknesses and abilities that the creature had. Both exercises started the students off with ways to come up with their own ideas for a character, and it gave them a chance to be innovative and work in groups to solve problems individually and together as a team. This lesson was put to use at Edna Brewer Middle School in Oakland. The certified counselor to all 806 students at this school, Alice Phillips, says, in other subjects, it is often hard for the right-brained students to find a way to be creative. She also has a background in psychology, which helps her understand the creative impulses students need to express themselves as they struggle through adolescence, which is why she has invited me as a teaching artist to the middle school. I provide the students with these curriculums and lessons that give them the opportunity to think creatively at a school that does not yet have an art program. Here is a short clip of my students working in groups as they create the object they were assigned to build, which in this case was a raft.
The bottom part of the boat is made of tree bark.
This part is made out of a piece of wood, and this is made out of a bunch of leaves.
That is the tree stump.
Okay, cool. And then how does it work?
Well, the wind blows the leaves, so it would carry the boat towards where the wind is blowing.
And then you use that to steer it? At this point, creative thinking is what makes them survive being on this island. You can see how well they worked as a team and hear how thought out their idea of how their raft will work was. Another art advocate, Termeh Yegazarian, agrees with this concept and says, "We don't really go deep enough to find where the idea comes from and who are the people that come up with these ideas." She was the coordinator for volunteers for the Burning Man project for many years. For those of you who haven't heard of Burning Man, in her words, it is a big event for a wide spectrum of individuals to collaborate and exercise their creative thinking. By wide spectrum, she means not only does she collaborate with artists there, but with scientists, mathematicians, corporate owners, and many others that want to improve their creative capacity. I was curious how many of my students get the chance to improve their creative capacity in a school setting. So in the same survey I conducted, 68% said they don't usually have chances to create something in their classes. 57% said they don't usually get to try again at something they failed at, both of which are encouraged in an art classroom and in real life. Tacy Trowbridge, the lead of worldwide education at Adobe, discussed with me that we're not preparing people for a fixed future. We're preparing students for a changing world. What's the right way to do that? It means we need students who are thinkers, who are creators, and who can solve problems. We both agreed that the art classroom provides room in the curriculum for students to develop the creative thinking skills, which help them find the initiative to do it themselves. These skills are not just meant for the artist. They are meant for the employees at NASA saving astronauts, doctors who don't want to limit themselves to textbook knowledge, or the people who want to develop efficient systems for the office. A scholarly article titled "Creative Thinking in Arts Alumni" states that the American Association of Colleges and Universities has recently added creative thinking as an essential learning outcome for higher education, hoping to encourage progress in its development. In this time of economic instability, perhaps one of the greatest weapons we have is creativity and innovation. I'd like you to now imagine what an amazing world we can live in, if not only our artists, but all our scientists, educators, business people, and politicians were also trained to think creatively. I thank you for your attention and support of art education and its role in the path of innovation for the millennials.